to Dissection. For this video today, we're going to talk about some interesting possible dates for ancient sites around the world that can span 400,000 years. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's really a lot of data that points to this. Some of the things I've discovered when doing my ancient history research is these sites of megalithic structures sometimes seem to have multiple periods of megalithic structures, as if whoever built these megalithic structures were then replaced later on by another group that happened to know the same technology and then would build right on top of that. Because while we're seeing a lot of the similarities with the granite stonework, there are some interesting variations to it, and we don't really have a reasoning for that, much less reasoning for the megalithic structures in the first place. But something that scientists do tend to agree on is a lot of megalithic structures, these stone structures, are aligned to specific points, cardinal points, or like solstices. There seems to be something aligned with the stars, but it goes deeper than that. I'll be showing MarioBuildReps.com and some data from there, and I'll have a link in the description. But this gentleman has done so much research by correlating these megalithic sites with the North Pole. And why that's interesting to do is because during the history on Earth, even during the times of hominids and different types of primates, the North Pole has shifted quite a bit from the north that we consider being the North Pole to some areas in Greenland, even more closer to North America. Now, this is where it gets interesting because we are finding a lot of these ancient megalithic sites happen to be aligned with the poles. Now, the North Pole, but since the North Pole seems to migrate, we're even able to go through periods in time where the North Pole has been and seeing clusters of sites that are oriented in that direction. So yeah, let's look at some of the data. All right, so here's MarioBuildReps.com. Very interesting, and he was recently on a Snake Brothers podcast episode that I have linked in the description, and I'm going to dive into some of what they talked about there, because that was a 2-hour episode, and there is no way that I'm going to cover all that, and there's no way for me to just regurgitate what they've been saying. What I'm trying to do here is kind of simplify it, take some of the extreme examples, put them together, but allow you to do the research yourself if you're interested with the links below. Okay, so on this, what's really cool on the top of his website is having this GIF here of the Earth and the different times in the past where our North Pole has been, which is facts because this stuff has been researched. You can find this information in ice core samples. Also, there are some organic matter, like let's say old giant trees that have been buried for a long time, nearly fossilized. They've been uncovered over time, and you can tell by the rings of the tree certain things that have occurred. So there's a lot of data that already supports, and it's almost agreed on, that the North Pole has shifted during different periods in our past. And what's interesting is during a constant shift, a lot of times the weather or the environment on Earth is a little disastrous and makes it harder for civilizations to develop. But once a pole settles somewhere, that gives time for a civilization to develop. I'd even say right now, our pole is kind of in a spot that's allowing civilization to develop. This has given time for ancient civilizations to get so far as to what seems to be the consistent thing here, relying on granite blocks, stonework, things that are impervious to earthquakes. I mean, we're obviously seeing sites that have lasted for so long that are still standing around the world. And with this shot here, we can see where it's showing not only areas in South America, but Egypt, we've got UK, we've got China, all areas around the world where there are countless stone structures, probably more than the average person even realizes. It seems if the discussion and talk of how much of these ancient stone structures are around the world, people would more than likely start assuming that, oh, of course there have been civilizations in the past before our current one, advanced civilizations that have been able to understand measurements around the Earth, the stars, how to work with stone. So again, this is linked below, but I wanted the Snake Bros to kind of concisely say it themselves because I think they did a good job here.
Non-crustal shift variation. And then when you get a crustal shift, you get it
exactly.
hugely.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so the steps are: you look at a bunch of ancient sites, you determine their north, south, east, west alignments, and then plotting those north alignments shows you a bunch of different possible previous poles.
Clusters around.
Clusters around poles, and then you find out that, like, amazingly, the distance between those pole clusters correlates with the temperature shifts that are being shown in ice core data.
As well as the time between them, right?
The time between them, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, that was a good way to kind of explain all the different things that are occurring. So when we're looking far into the past and we're trying to put different points of data together, we have to understand that it does require multiple data points to come to a conclusion or a theory to conclude with. It reminds me when I got into this topic in the first place about ancient civilizations that have been lost. It didn't really make sense to me until understanding the geography of the planet, understanding cataclysms that can occur, that can cause widespread flooding, 1,000-year rain. All of this stuff has happened in its effect. And so if that has happened, it makes me think, well, if there was an ancient civilization, it would have been wiped out. Of course, anything we have right now would have been wiped out. If something was to occur at this moment, everything that's saved in the cloud, all that data that we rely on so much would be gone. There would be no traces. All of our metal would deteriorate by now. So to see stone, advanced stone that it made in ways that we can't replicate today, shows that a civilization was advanced enough to create these and engineer stone in a way that makes it safe for people to hide under, for earthquakes. But obviously, the cataclysms that can happen on Earth are so severe that it could even destroy all traces of those previous civilizations. I like this line on the website. Homo sapien is present on this planet for more than 400,000 years and has been a gifted builder directly from the start. And here's another image kind of showing where some pyramids are located, the cardinal point in which they're going, and you can kind of see where it crosses over near Greenland, near our current North Pole, but also where the poles have been in the past. You would want to come in here and read through all the graphs. I mean, there's tons of them. So this is orientation versus latitude in the Western Hemisphere, orientation versus latitude Eastern Hemisphere. So you can see where these clusters are, and there's just too much of that, of these clusters during certain periods of time at a direction at where a pole was located to be a coincidence. I mean, really, the chance of that is so small that most likely this was done on purpose. Here's showing this Homo sapiens family tree. We can see we're in the middle of the 500,000 mark. And right after that, we're going to get into that in a second, the dates that, supposedly that some of these sites could have been built back as far as in the 400,000 years. And again, just think about this again. A current civilization started maybe about 5,000 years ago, or current modern civilization, apparently. And apparently that's the only time that Homo sapiens have had any sort of advanced civilization. But, I mean, if you go back a million years, even 500,000 years, there's enough time for a 5,000-year cycle to occur where we get advanced real quick and then lose it all. It's more likely that happens than all of a sudden Homo sapien at this point in time is advanced right away. But what really means you're advanced? Right now, we're not building giant megalithic structures around the world to keep people safe. While we have farming, there's a lot of people that are dying due to starvation and hunger. So are we really advanced? The Mayan, Aztec, and Inca cultures are much older. So why did these cultures suddenly disappear? Scholars have never found a credible explanation for the rapid disappearance of these highly developed cultures, except mythos, tales, opinions, and just ideas. Now, there could be different degrees of populations that were in this area. The most recent, probably when visited by the Spanish or European colonizers, possibly did die out due to disease, war. But it's evident, far evident, that there have been populations and civilizations before that might have died off due to the cataclysm. If we want to say that the cataclysm happened about 12,000 years ago, that kind of aligns to where, like our current pole is. That's allowed us since then to rebuild societies. So it could be that the people that migrated over to South America and the Americas just settled on these lands that were previously populated, because we can go back pretty far actually in the Americas to find, I think in Arizona recently, there were some footprints that were found that were older than any date that we currently have of humans being in the Americas. And it only keeps going further back the more we research and find things. So I'm going to assume that is also what is happening when a cataclysm occurs. The populations are starting over again, and they're from different pockets. So it could be Neanderthal, Denisovan, others, hybrids that are isolated by themselves, evolving for a while, then emerging from the caves, like is very a common tradition with a lot of Native American myth legends of coming out from the ground, and then hybridizing again, migrating again, cataclysm occurs, same process over again, having to rebuild. And I love looking at graphs like this because this is really just showing how much data there is to get to this conclusion. And it really takes time. It could take hundreds of years, thousands of years for something to come up, for then a community of scientists, researchers to decide, hey, what if this occurred? Let's research it and see if we can find a conclusion to this theory. So, I mean, it could have just been we've gone so long where we've considered modern human development like the best humans have ever been, the only time we've ever been this advanced and powerful, and we would just disregard any notion to research anything that makes us look less than that. Okay, so the time frame and short list of ancient structures. So this is where we could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the different poles that we've been able to trace back aligned with structures. I mean, it's showing potentially the Pyramid of Giza as far back as 26,000 years ago. Now, in my research that I've done and a lot of research that's out there, it does seem very plausible that a lot of structures that we see in Egypt are that old. But it's when we get to these others that I, really haven't dived into the data too much, but the data that's being presented here based on polls makes sense. Because remember, when we're trying to date stone, you actually can't date stone. So it's whatever organic material is found nearby. The oldest organic material might not be material that was there when it was originally built. In fact, most organic material might have just completely disappeared by then. So really, when we're dating a lot of these ancient stone sites, we're just going by whatever the oldest organic material is around. That does no way confirm a date on anything. A stone can be 1 million years old, and we just have no way of finding out. So here we get to what could be the oldest. So Nineveh and Sumer, that's very interesting. Eridu and Sumer, and a lot of this stuff from Sumer, if we want to discuss the Mesopotamian civilization that occurred, a lot of this stuff occurred before events that we find, or before some of what was recorded in, for instance, the Christian Bible. And it's like the same stories being passed down, just the names are being changed. So that's also another interesting aspect here. A lot of the source of these stories of where humans come from, our knowledge, etc., whether it could be a myth or not, is really aligned with a lot of sites in Sumer, or the like the tablets that have cuneiform. They explain this stuff, and so that Sumer, according to this, goes back that far, and that aligns with myths if the myths are true. So right there, I mean, whether it's really 410,000 or earlier, but still being the oldest aligns with what is told in our myths. Well, anyway, so I just wanted to take that recent Snake Brothers podcast, Mario Buildrap's website, and kind of build just a basic picture of what we're looking at here, that we can use geology, mathematics especially, to almost date a lot of these structures around the world, in which current academia says there's no way it could be that old. But the truth is, there's really no way to know. We're just going to assume with whatever the oldest organic matter is at a site, we're just going to date it then. And that's just not an accurate way to go about it. I think it is okay to be more open-minded and be like, yeah, maybe we don't know how old a site is, but we know it's an ancient site. And we had some incredible hominids that were on the planet that were able to manipulate the matter in which they were. And, the other thing to think about too is, like, even if these ancient sites weren't built by any other hominids or whatever, we got to understand whatever humans are today didn't exist even 12,000 years ago, because of all the hybridization, the groups that have been segregated due to these pole shifts that are occurring, causing humans to live in caves. That's where we get cavemen from. We assume because we're finding so many artifacts in caves, humans must have been cavemen. But no, that's where we escaped when Cataclysm occurred. And then we can see the rebuilding again on top of these ancient sites, because these ancient sites are located in areas that allow for farming, allow for water and resources and large populations. So it's about taking all the different points of data, putting it together, and it really paints a picture that makes a lot of sense, even if it's different than what you've been taught. So anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any other information to add to this, any clarifications, or anything I got wrong, just let me know. And thanks for watching.